Chairman, thank you very much, and also thank you to the ranking member. Also, special thanks to my fellow Minnesotan, Senator Klobuchar and Senator Franken, and the entire panel. And of course, I was very moved by the words of my fellow panelists. They were amazing, and I want to say that ditto everything they said. Last week, 15-year-old Abdi Samad Sheikh Hussein was run over by a man in an SUV, and that bumper sticker on his car said, "Islam is worse than Ebola." But today, I'm not here to talk and focus on private hate crimes and discrimination, although that deserves all the attention that we can muster. Today, I'd like to talk about the discrimination that happens at the hands of state actors. I think we should shine a light on all forms of discrimination, but I think that the events that we've seen over the last few weeks demonstrate how very important it is for the state and people who act on behalf of the state to get it right. People have a legitimate higher expectation of people who operate on behalf of the state. Our government is a democratic government and is undergirded by a constitution, and the people have every right to believe that the government is there to protect the general welfare. And that makes it all the more disappointing when people who operate on behalf of the state fail to live up to that expectation. People have a right to believe that they will be dealt with justly and fairly by the state, but when the state violates people's rights, it's fair for people to wonder, who's going to protect my rights if the state will not? And that's why people are particularly incensed by encounters between citizens and law enforcement. People are grateful for law enforcement. We believe in law enforcement. I am grateful for law enforcement, and I know people who are in law enforcement, most of them go into it because they want to help people. But when they fail and when excessive force is employed, it is incredibly disappointing, and it shakes people's confidence in what the state's supposed to do for them, which is to protect them and to promote their welfare. You know, the injustice we've seen over the past week is not new. It's not the first time the police have been videotaped using excessive force. None of us can ever forget Rodney King. It's not the first time people die in police custody, and it isn't the first time that a grand jury has vetoed justice. Why are people walking around with their hands up saying, "I can't breathe"? Why are people saying, "Don't shoot"? Why are they proclaiming these things all over cities in America? It is because of a long train of abuses, not one particular case. People who want to argue over the nuance of one recent case in the news or another are free to do so, but no one can deny the unmistakable pattern between police and community, particularly black community, and men in that community. We can talk about Eric Gardner and Michael Brown, but what about Tamara Rice, 12 years old? What about Darren Hunt, who had a toy? What about Rodney King? And by the way, not only is this a long train of abuses, it goes back further even than the Kerner Commission report, which said our nation is moving toward two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. 50 years ago, we were dealing with this same issue, and it is on us today, and we must make a call to action to reverse this trend so that every American, all Americans, can feel that the government really is liberty and justice for all. So instead of a system of justice that works for some, it doesn't work for all. This injustice takes place within a social and economic context. And I have to say that when Officer Wilson confronted Michael Brown on Canfield Drive in Ferguson, the interaction did not take place in a vacuum. Ferguson, Missouri's unemployment rate is 13%, over double the national average. The number of poor people in Ferguson doubled over the last 10 years. In 2012, almost all of Ferguson's neighborhoods had a poverty rate of over 20%. The fact is, if we respond by ordering body cams, ordering police cameras, this will be good steps. If we have grand jury reform, if we require that there are preliminary hearings in these officer-involved shootings so we can have more transparency, these will all be good things, but they will not stop the pattern unless we deal with the structural economic abandonment of cities like Ferguson. We cannot continue to solve our economic and social problems with criminal justice solutions. The fact that our low-income and minority communities are over-policed and underprotected is the spark, but poverty and economic deprivation is the kindling, and that's what lights the flame. I say yes again to body cams and all types of reforms, but please let us not forget that investing in infrastructure, education, public job programs, and providing for social supports which help people stay away from the hardest aspects of an unfair economy are essential. You do not sell Lucy's on the streets of Staten Island if you are making a livable wage. We know that we have an inequality problem when the CEO of Walmart makes over $12,000 an hour and the average Walmart worker makes $8.48. And the CEO of McDonald's makes $9,200 an hour and the cashier makes $8.25. So please do not forget that dealing with the economic deprivation that kindles these situations is incredibly important. It's important in the cases, the recent cases. It will be important in the future. I'd now like to turn my attention just for a moment to talk about the problems that affect the Muslim community in particular. Societal discrimination is real. I have been the direct victim of it myself. In my own state, only a few days ago, a county party chairman called Muslims parasites and said they should be fragged. That means to kill them violently. A state senator in Oklahoma said that American Muslims are a cancer in our nation that needs cutting out. So when we arrive at how the state deals with this Muslim population, we know that we're already dealing with a situation in which so many in the law enforcement community see the Muslim community as a security problem, not fully fleshed members of our community here to make a contribution. And so I too was disappointed in the guidance that was recently issued by the Department of Justice and believe that at no time can we have a system of justice in which someone's race or religion or what they're wearing can justify engagement by law enforcement. Law enforcement should engage citizens when there is some articulable suspicion that that person, it might commit a specific crime. And that should be the basis of the engagement until we say that racial profiling, religious profiling is actually bad law enforcement. We will continue to bother people and engage people who had nothing to do with any wrongdoing, and we will miss people who are up to no good and will harm us. Again, thank you, all the committee members and my panelists, fellow panelists, for this excellent presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.